We've got some fresh new young talent doing some things that I know you haven't heard before.
1, 2, 3, listen.
Welcome to Finances, your home for all things financial, investment, money and lifestyle. Hosted and curated by the very talented team of certified financial planners, Burke Britton Financial Partners. The link between Burke Britton and Wombats Wish, I was trying to work out earlier how the connection actually came up in the first instance. I don't think we came to that conclusion.
I think it was through Hannah Dawes.
Yeah, well, Hannah's good friends with Naomi Kavanagh.
That's it.
And Naomi...
we got a great donation, and then I said to Hannah, I think we need Peter on our board.
Well, it even goes back a few years, 5 or 6 years ago, because we were invited through Naomi. Her friend Hannah was running a fundraising night at...
Well, how about you hold that thought,
Okay.
PB, and we'll save that for the discussion. So, all right, so let's kick in. So this is welcome to episode 16 of the Fine Answers podcast. We've got myself, Jay Burke, Managing Director at Burke Britton Financial Partners. I'm joined today by my usual co-host, Ben Kemp, Burke Britton Director and founder Peter Burke, and Nikki Dunne, Operations Manager from Wombats Wish. Now, Wombats Wish is a Geelong not-for-profit organisation that supports children who have experienced the death of a parent, a cause very close to our heart at Burke Britton. Nikki, welcome to Burke Britton and to the Finances podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Nikki, what about Wombats Wish? Jay just gave us a brief summary of what Wombats Wish is. Could you expand on that a fraction about Wombats Wish?
I can. 1 in 20 Australian kids have a parent die before they turn 18, which is an amazing, sad statistic.
I read that this morning, Nikki, and
Yeah.
it was shocking when I was having a bit of a look at the statistics. I thought that's pretty amazing, and I don't think many people would realise that.
No, and I certainly didn't realise it before I started at Wombats Wish. And to put that into some perspective, that's probably one child in every classroom in Victoria. So that's really sad.
Staggering.
It is. So Wombats Wish supports children who are parentally bereaved throughout Victoria. We provide camp programs, group counselling and one-on-one counselling. Our camp program is our biggest program. So a young person, along with the surviving parent, comes along to a weekend grief camp where we mix it with some grief activities, workshops around memories, coping, how to move on, while we support the parents separately on how to support their child through grief while they're grieving. The camp program's been around since 2005 when Jill brought it out from Winston's Wish, and we can take up to probably 10 families as a maximum per camp, and that's only because of accommodation restrictions, and it costs about $1,200 to send one family to a camp each camp. So
It's I suppose it can't be said enough just how important those support services are for the kids and for the spouse left behind. I'm not sure which direction to take this in, because I know there's a couple of directions we could probably take the conversation, but while we're on Wombats Wish specifically, maybe for those, including myself, that don't have a lot of context about how Wombats Wish was initially founded, maybe if we start with the origin story there, because I know for Ben, Peter and myself, these podcasts have been really as much for us as it is for anyone else.
I was going to say we know more than others, but we know hardly anything still. So I think, you do a bit more reading and stuff, but to actually hear it and get some context is what we're trying to do. And then more people understand it, they're more inclined to help out with money or time or whatever it is. So
yeah. So maybe let's start with the Wombats Wish origin story.
Okay, so Jill Crooks, who is our founding member, her husband died playing cricket at Lawn, I think it was, or Apollo Bay. And she's a clinical psychologist and had 2 young children. And after the death of her husband, she tried to find some support services for her kids through their grief. and didn't actually find a lot in Victoria. And through her Google search, she stumbled across Winston's Wish, which was set up in the UK after the Second World War under Winston's name to support children after the death of a soldier, their parent. So Jill was over in the UK. I think her daughter was studying over there at the time, so she was over there, and she went to Winston's Wish and spent quite a few months learning their program and brought their program back to Australia or back to Victoria. And we often ask Jill why a wombat, or why Wombats Wish. Why did she name it that? She wanted to keep the connection with Winston's Wish, hence the wish part. But she tells us that wombats are really resilient animals, and what they tend to do is plop their head down and just keep burrowing. And she compared that to when you're going through grief, that's what you tend to do. You just have to be resilient and you have to burrow your way through your grief. So hence the wombats.
Head down, bum up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was also a connection with an auntie of hers who really loved wombats as well. But it was more around the resilience and the burrowing of wombats. So that's how we became Wombats Wish.
And what year was that that Jill lost her husband and then subsequently created Wombats Wish?
I couldn't tell you the exact year. I think it was a couple of years in the making.
Okay.
Because she pulled together a committee quite quickly, registered as Wombats Wish as a charity, and had their first camp in 2005. So I think there was an 18 months, 2 year.
Sure, so we're nearing in on nearly 20 years of Wombats Wish.
Yeah, 17 years this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So when Wombats Wish first started, we don't charge any of the children or the families to attend any of our programs. So they madly fundraised and funded their first camp, of which I think there was about 8 families. It's quite a small camp. Funded their first camp, put with a very small board, and from there, each year, basically the board has fundraised, run a camp, and that's all they had done for the first few years. Just 2 years ago, the board made the decision that it was time to expand Wombats Wish and employ some staff. And our plan, where our portfolio was to let's expand Wombats Wish. So we've gone from 1 camp a year, and next year we're actually running from now for the next 18 months, we've actually got 10 camps in total.
Wonderful.
Coming up, and we're piloting 2 new regions in the next 18 months, one being the Goulburn Valley region, in the camps at Camp Kookaburra and Corop.
Next week?
Next week's our first one, and amazingly we've got 10 families and had to put on a second camp in September for that region.
Sensational.
And next year we're going to also pilot a Bass Coast camp at Phillip Island. We have had a lot, probably about 30% of our referrals coming through at the moment are from Berwick down the coast, all down the coast. So Phillip Island seems to be a good fit to pilot another camp program for that side of town and that coastline. So
you mentioned the referrals, and I'm sure we'll get to it a little bit later on in terms of how we can support. But what's the normal process you have, or you see in terms of people finding Wombats Wish? Yeah. So is it a referral service alone? Are people Googling and finding Wombats Wish themselves? How do they generally find themselves getting support from Wombats Wish?
So I guess it's a little bit of both. We have a referral. We do have a referral process. Families can self-refer themselves, or a practitioner working with the family or community service working with the family can also put in a referral on their behalf. And if you go to our website, wombatswish.org.au/referral, that takes you straight to the referral. Once we receive the referral, we in the office contact them, and we're normally within the next day, unless we're out of the office. We do go out and assess the children and the family prior to a camp, just to make sure that they're ready to tackle a weekend grief program. It can be quite confronting, and if it's a new death, they might not be quite ready. And if they're not, that's okay. They don't ever go off our books. We keep in touch with them, but we also provide them with resources or other services that they might be able to get some immediate support for or with through their grief. So we have lots of referral contacts that we now send off, and lots of resources. Children, sometimes parents don't know how to talk to a 4-year-old about grief. There's some great stuff out there. Sesame Street did a great little YouTube. So we send all that sort of stuff along to help them, supporting them till they're ready for a camp.
In terms of being ready for a camp, what kind of age groups are you seeing at camps? Obviously, I think it's the parent and or the spouse. Sorry, the parent or surviving spouse, or an adult supporter and the child. What type of age group are we talking about that would be sort of that are suitable for the camps?
So we take anyone from the age of 4 through to 17.
Okay.
Yeah. So they get split at camp. They get split into age groups, appropriately age groups, and we have team leaders and volunteers in each age group that work through the activities. And obviously, we adapt the program for a 4-year-old, which is 4-year-old probably can't sit there for an hour and a half and do a workshop, so that's adapted. And the teenage group, we tend to adapt a fair bit around meeting their needs during the sessions. You know, they might be starting to partake in some risky behaviours through their grief, which is very common in young people to cope with their grief. So we sort of steer some of those workshops around some minimisation of those behaviours. And very excitingly, we're going to pilot a program just for youth around that, hopefully in July, Cottage by the Sea.
So that was in conjunction with Cottage by the Sea?
Yes, in partnership. They're giving us their venue and some of their staff as volunteers to help run the outdoor activities. But that camp will really focus around harmonisation during their grief through the teenage years. And we've got Headspace on board with that as well, or Headspace GP, who's going to come and run some workshops with us as well on that.
Should we backtrack a bit? And Nikki's been telling us a lot about Wombats Wish, but what about you, your history, your experience, and how you came to Wombats Wish yourself?
Okay. So 34 years as a youth worker and mental health worker.
And you've survived it.
I have survived it. And to be honest, I still love working with young people. That's what keeps me going, keeps me young, I think. I started with the Salvation Army and did a traineeship working on the streets of Melbourne with the homeless. And we relocated to Clifton Springs when 27 years ago, and I became the manager of what was the Ocean Grove Neighbourhood Centre back then, and is now the Ballerine Training Community Hub, and was there for 22 years and started the youth program for the Ballerine Peninsula. There was no youth support on the Ballerine Peninsula, and we started a program called Drop In, where high-risk young people would voluntarily attend on Friday night. And it was facilitated by myself and youth workers, and over that time we had over 3,000 young people that we supported through every aspect of youth work, from court appearances to grief to mental health, self-harming, risky behaviours, you name it, we did it. And after 22 years, I decided it was a bit of a time for a change. BTAC, we were also an RTO, so I was getting bogged down with a lot of compliance paperwork and my passions with young people, and I had my Friday nights, COVID hit, and I thought, I think it's time for a change for me. I was getting a bit stale, and stumbled across Wombats Wish's job advert. Now, as a youth worker for 22 years on the Ballerine and supporting young people through grief, I was surprised to know that I did not know about Wombats Wish, which is crazy. And I thought, oh, this is great for me. I love camps. I used to hold annual camps for our youth program, drop-in, and we used to take up to 45 kids interstate without parents. It was us and 5 or 6 youth workers, and we'd do the Gold Coast or Port Douglas or Moreton Island or ski camps. It was the thing that we worked towards with the kids each year. I thought, camps, I love doing my camps. That was what I loved doing. So hence applied for the position, and here I am 2 years later, Wombats Wish, and as I said before, it was going to be my semi-retirement job. Hasn't quite worked out that way. But I love the organisation. I love what we do. I am in awe at the camp program and the connections the kids make at camp and the lifelong friendships the kids and the surviving parents make. That's what I get the most out of Wombats Wish, is seeing that. Kids often feel alone in their grief, and their peers don't know how to talk to them or what to say, or they feel isolated because they might start talking about their parents. Say, oh, sorry, you've lost your mum or dad. We'll stop talking about that. So the biggest thing I get is the connections that they all make, and they seem to be long-lasting connections. Social media is an amazing thing, and during their really bad days away from camp, they can help each other. And same with the parents. One of our board members, Jo, did one of our first camps, and she still talks about the connections and the friendship she made on that camp with people. So, well, other parents. So it's an amazing organisation. So very happy to be with Wombats Wish.
You said that you began. Was it the beginning of COVID? Did you start in the operations manager role, or was that an appointment in 2021?
No, I started July 20.
Okay.
So right in the middle of the first year of COVID.
Okay.
And I'll be honest, when I first started, I probably spent the first 8 months, which was all COVID, because we couldn't run any programs, writing policies, organising strategic planning for the board, doing that sort of governance work. The board, because the board had always been an operational board, we needed to put things in place for that shift. So I spent a lot of time working on getting those sort of things in place and applying every grant I could find. I applied for, because there wasn't a lot of money in the Wombats Wishes account. As I said, they would fundraise, run a camp, fundraise, run a camp. So spend a lot of time trying to make Wombats Wish a little bit more sustainable, and with the growth, and make it sustainable growth moving forward. Yeah,
just thinking logistically, as you talk about the growth that Wombats Wish has experienced with a number of camps, along with that comes an enormous amount of energy, effort, time, governance. Maybe, I don't know, but Peter, you want to maybe touch on this just in terms of sort of the expansion of responsibilities, like as the organisation has grown is most of the growth you've seen come in the last couple of years since you've joined? Is that, without sort of patting yourself on the back too much, but what we've seen the growth really expand? Has that been largely the last couple of years?
It has been the last 2 years. At BTACH, I had the nickname the Whirlwind, and I think the footy club would probably agree. If you give me a job or give me some direction, I just go, and I work very hard to be successful.
Head down, bum up, by the sounds of it.
I'm like a wombat. And I work very, very hard to achieve those. So first thing I did with the board was, there was no strategic plan. And when I was going through the interview process, I asked about that. And within the first 2 months, I had Greg Collier. I don't know if you guys know Greg Collier.
I know the name.
He used to be president of the Drysdale Footy Club, but he's international sort of business coach and does amazing things. So I engaged Greg to come and run our strategic plan. And we've achieved the outcomes of that in 18 months. So, yeah, I guess the need has always been there for this many camps. The awareness about what Wombat Wish does, or that Wombats Wish exists throughout the state, wasn't there. So people just didn't know who we were or what we did. We launched a pretty hectic social media campaign, and that has 100% increased our engagement with community and referrals. So we're now just managing to keep up with demand of referrals coming in, and I think that will keep growing the more people know about Wombats Wish, obviously. Yeah.
So, having met all of the PB, did I interrupt you there? Did you have a question?
I was just going to talk about the evolution of from a naive, immature business to one that, or not-for-profit organisation, to one that's starting to actually become more administratively capable, and where that could possibly go to. You mentioned about the need for 10 camps a year. Well, by the sound of it, 1 in 20 kids, that you could comfortably run 20 camps a year with the need out there. But to have that need and have the thought that, yes, we would love to run 10 or more camps, you then have to have the administrative capability, you have to have all of the marketing and resources for it, and you have to fund it. There's a massive step from running 1 or 2 camps a year to running 10 camps a year, and that doesn't just happen overnight. And my short-term observations, jumping from an organisation run by a group of people on a board to the future where you've got an organisation that runs itself with the board actually just overseeing and providing support, and we're heading there. And I think one of the best things that Wombats Wish have done is employ someone like yourself and get a couple of admin people to support you to say, right, let's get out and do all that grunt work so we can find the capabilities to run 10 camps a year. So it's a big step, but it's a really important step.
I guess one of my other strengths, other than working with young people, is the ability to ask for money and write grants. I did the same at BTAC when I first started there. They employed me with $5,000 in the bank. I left that as a multi-million-dollar organisation after it took 20 years, but it was still there. Wombats Wish probably won't be a multi-million-dollar organisation, charity in my time, but that's my goal, is to leave it in a financially stable position. And I do write a lot of grants, and we are definitely we'll be able to fund 10 camps over the next 18 months.
As the referrals, you're getting the referrals, does that doesn't generate funding though, does it? That just generates cost. So as you grow, then you've got to obviously keep finding more paths for funding. Is that you want to grow the program, but obviously you have the dollars to fund
do
it.
Exactly.
What's the main, the next phase of that? How does it become sustainable from a financial perspective?
Not down the grant path, because the grants are so competitive now. If you get 1 in 10 grants, 1 in every 8 to 10 grants that you write, you're very successful. Yep. They are so competitive, and you just got to hope that the person that reads your initial application, that you touch something in them for them to progress it. And sometimes death, you're not touching someone's heartstrings around death, even though I think it's very heartening. So it's about increasing donations, corporate sponsorships, and probably long-term lobbying governments to fund childhood grief. They just don't. They fund mental health and suicide, but this childhood grief doesn't actually fit into a lot of their portfolios. So it's about lobbying them to maybe taking on that childhood grief is really important. We've got the statistics. We've got the outcomes of the long-term effects of children going through grief, and how it affects them and their mental health, even into adulthood. So it's a matter of maybe lobbying them to get them on board and saying, yes, we're going to annually provide a contribution to support childhood grief.
Is and this might be a naive question, but from an NDIS funding, the services that are provided by Wombats Wish are just not considered to be under the NDIS regime at all?
Not at this stage.
Okay.
We can, for those children that are coming on camp that do receive NDIS funding and require a one-on-one carer, they can use some of their funding to send that one-on-one carer to camp. So we're basically that would cover the cost of the carer, but not to attend camp as a family. Yeah.
Come back to your point about government funding. Surely early intervention, providing support when young people have this horrible thing happen in their lives, is way better than trying to then manage depression and suicide at a later stage of their life. I mean, it's just a no-brainer, isn't
Common
it?
sense, doesn't
It's
it?
100% common sense. And,
It doesn't. Yeah.
federal election this Saturday, and trust me, I have had meetings with both candidates over the last couple of months leading into the election, but they'll provide promises to fund computers for Drysdale Primary, but do you think we can get some mental health promise for Wombats Wish at this stage? No.
I guess that, again, one of the small things that we hope, having a chat today, if we can raise awareness of the community broadly, and if the people that are in our community, the Burke Britton community, if we can have them aware and they can talk to the people they know and they can spread, well, hopefully more and more people that know this is a fantastic organisation that does wonderful, wonderful work and needs to be funded and logically should be funded through some sort of government support. Well, if we just keep pushing against that door, surely somewhere in the near future it'll open. We just have to keep pushing.
We do.
Perseverance, yeah.
I think we might have been not on air when we talked. You've been talking a little bit, insinuating your role with Wombats Wish, Peter. Maybe you just want to touch on that, because that also probably leads into just how, I suppose, the connection between Burke Britton, our business, and Wombats Wish, sort of how that came to be, why we're so passionate about supporting it, both from a personal and professional point of view, and what we can do in terms of support, like we've just spoken about raising awareness. So maybe I'll let you run on that theme.
Yeah, well, I think go back maybe 5 or 6 years ago, my now wife, Esther, her bestie, one of her best friends, Naomi Kavanagh, asked us, knowing that we had lost a child and that we had, that bereaved parental loss situation in our family with Cody's dad, Clayton, going 2001, wasn't it? So Naomi said, you guys might like to come along to this, and it was a fundraiser at Alma, the restaurant in Ryrie Street. And so we went along. I think Hannah Dawes was working with Naomi Kavanagh. And we got there, and it was really nice, because we got there and Cookie was a patron, like Brian was there with Claire, and it was nice because we've been mates for a long time. So I sort of it was nice to go along and be part of the night. It was quite a simple night, lovely wines, good food, and you got to buy some things and help raise some money. So that was my first awareness of Wombats Wish. And then when we as a business were able to get engaged with the Future Generation Donation Program, it made sense to me that Wombats Wish might be one of those organisations that we should support through that donation program. And having done that a couple of times, and then I got a call from Nikki who said, Peter, we'd be interested, it's a vacancy on the board, would you be interested in coming on the board? This was later last year, I think. So from there, went through the process, had chats with Casey and David, chairman and vice chairman, and I'm now on the board also. I had a 2.5 hour meeting last night via Zoom from 6 till a bit after 8.
Yeah, and I know you touched on it briefly, not wanting to put you on the spot. This is like you were talking before, Nikki, about sometimes it's hard to talk about those grief and how it affects people. Peter, having four grandchildren that have lost parents, it is something very, very close to our heart. And I actually wanted to see if we could get Cody. I was too late. I should have asked him to come on. Asked him to come in yesterday, but Cody, your grandson, my nephew, who's lost both of his parents prior to being 15, has been, believe he's been on a camp, and I think
he's had a couple of camps with you, Nikki, hasn't he?
He has. He's even been Freeman.
Beautiful photos. It was fantastic. Yeah, well, we had the horror of losing Clayton, Cody's dad, 21 years ago. Got the knock on the door by the cops at 5:45 in the morning. And Cody at that stage was 6 days old, and he had not come out. The day he lost his dad was the day he came out of hospital. And then some 12 or 13 years later, his mother passed away as well. So before he was 13 or 14, he'd lost both parents. And sadly, since then, my younger son, Jay's younger brother, Jackson, were lost 2 and a bit years ago, January, just before the COVID breakout. And he left behind 2 beautiful little girls, Lily and Maddie. So, Clayton had Rani, who lives up in Brisbane now. She's 24-year-old actually. Cody is 21, and Lily's about 9, and Maddie will be about 6, I think. So 4 grandies who have lost their parents very early in their lives, which is pretty sad. So we have a very, very strong emotional connection with what you do at Wombats Wish. And when you approached me about going on the board, clearly your first question is, my first question was, another time commitment. Will I fit it in? Can I fit it in? Then I thought, well, yes, sometimes you just have to. So you have to make the time.
For sure. That probably leads us in a segue into the support that we can continue to offer. Maybe, Nikki, if we talk about what are the ways that people actually can support, either by donation, fundraising, volunteering, events, connecting families and services together. What are some of the key areas of support that not only us but anyone else listening to this podcast can do to help Wombats Wish?
Okay. There is a number of ways to support Wombats Wish. I'll talk about the financial support first. So we have quite a few platforms for financial support for corporates. We have corporate business packages, which is annual sponsorship package from anywhere from 2,500 to excess of 25,000. So that's our platinum. We do have a couple of businesses that sponsor us 25,000 a year, which is just amazing because that pays for a full camp. Do
you want to give them a shout out while we're here, Nikki?
So that's Mortimer's Petroleum.
Yep.
Drysdale connection.
The Drysdale community is absolutely amazing. Stockdale and Go and Drysdale is also a platinum sponsor. And I'd have to say that Burke Britton Finance over the last 18 months has become a platinum sponsor as well. So that's
I promise we'll do more.
That's amazing. And that funds a whole camp. So we've got a corporate sponsorship package book. So if anyone is interested, we can send that out and answer questions. Then we have Freeman's Borough, which we launched about 8 months ago. So for just the cost of a cup of coffee a week, you can actually join Freeman's Borough as an individual.
Can I just pause you there, Nikki?
Yeah.
We've talked about Freeman a couple of times. For those that aren't familiar with Wombats Wish and Freeman, do you maybe want to touch on who Freeman is, the story about Freeman?
So Freeman is our mascot. He is a giant wombat that comes and visits us at camps and events.
It sure looked cute when Cody was wearing his outfit.
He got his name, Freeman. The lady that made Freeman, who was a contact through Sherry, one of our board members, who I think actually also made Super Cat. Is that what he's called? The Geelong Cats one. Her father had died, and that was his name. So
was it Adrian Ernest Freeman? Is that right?
Yes. So Freeman is our giant mascot, and he's a very cheeky, naughty wombat, but loves cuddles. So he's very comforting for the kids on camp because he loves a cuddle.
That sounds like Cody to a T, doesn't it?
Oh, Cody was amazing. He was very funny as Freeman. I must say, Cody's volunteered on a couple of camps, and he is such an asset to Wombats Wish, and hopefully really soon he'll be ready to become a team leader. He's doing amazing stuff with the kids, so we love having Cody. Sorry he's not going to be in Corot with us, so yeah.
He continues to surprise all of us, doesn't he? in very, very positive ways.
Yeah, he's amazing. So Freemansborough is an individual donation platform whereby you can donate a certain amount per week per month, and depending on what that level is, we have some little rewards to go to that individual for being part of Freemansborough. We then have one-off donations where people can jump on the website and just make a donation through and I'll give you the details on that and how to donate in a sec. So you can jump on and make a one-off donation. We also have workplace giving. So we have a couple of platforms that we can help you sort out workplace giving. Currently, Energy Australia in Geelong do workplace giving for us, which is amazing. Their workplace giving funds in excess of 2 camps, full camps for the Geelong region, or Geelong people, as well as group counselling. So that's really amazing. Oh, and they also fund a family day for us as well. Then the other thing we can have is people can hold a fundraiser for us, whether it be an individual fundraiser or a group fundraiser. So we've had some people in Drysdale that have held high teas for us. Just a group of individuals that got together and put together some high teas. The Rotary Club of, I think they're now called Bellarine North, not Drysdale, they're Bellarine North, held their Mother's Day lunch as a fundraiser for Wombats Wish last week, or week before. Or you can do personal things. I did the one, I decided I needed to get fit, so I did challenge myself as a 1 in 20 walk, that I was going to walk 20 kilometres a week, and managed to raise nearly $3,000 doing that. So anyone that wants to hold a fundraiser or wants to put something like that together, just you can talk to one of us, the office team, and we can help you pull that together and promote it. Any other donations, if you just go to our website, wombatswish.org.au/donation, and all the different platforms are on there for how you can donate.
Brilliant.
Corporate sponsors need to probably contact me around that. And with the corporate sponsors, I forgot to mention, we can actually invoice you monthly, bi-monthly, annually, 6 monthly, whatever it is you like. And any donation or all donations over $2 are tax deductible. We are a DGR registered charity one.
How do they get in contact with you, Nikki?
You can ask me our new phone number and off.
We'll
have to
we'll
Google
get
it.
That's all right. Post it up. We'll post
One
it
other
up.
question in terms of
906-90314. Yes.
No worries, we'll make sure it's in the show notes for sure.
Thanks.
bequests from estates from wills. Is that
Yes.
something that you've
That's
promoted?
definitely something, and we have one at the moment operating, but that's another area I think we can really look at expanding and promoting out in the community.
You might have to wait a while, but I'm just about to redo my will. So,
And to be completely honest, it's not something that I have a lot of expertise in the area of. I have had organised a couple at BTAC, but it's probably something that needs an expert around helping people and what they need to do with that. And I think that's a lawyer.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I had down here just in terms of volunteers. I know some organisations logistically it's hard to bring on volunteers or support volunteers. Is there scope with Wombats Wish to have people volunteer either for camps or for any other practical means in supporting the organisation?
Definitely. The thing with our volunteers is we're not like a Geelong Mums where we or Female Ballerine or one of those where you need lots of people in packing food or packing packs and things like that. We actually don't have that capacity. We don't really do that. The way people can help us in volunteering is we do hold fundraisers. We go to trade shows, things like that, definitely need volunteers who can maybe step in and fill that sort of role for us. Camp program, definitely we need volunteers, but I tend to look for volunteers that have some sort of training in the community sector or with mental health. In the past, Wombats Wish hasn't done that, and I do know that sometimes when a child is really upset and really grieving, and you think you're saying the right thing, but you don't want to do more harm than good. So there is merit of volunteers coming on camp that may have had lived experience or not the qualification for certain sections of it. But I think across the board, we need to keep that focus.
Some level of expertise.
Yeah.
And
so we're not doing.
Yeah.
Even though we do say to our volunteers, if something comes up, don't give advice. Seek out one of our team or one of our qualified staff. It's such a raw topic and subject that you just need to be really careful what you say. So definitely anyone out there who is interested in volunteering, once again on our website under Contact Us there's a volunteer application form, and periodically we hold volunteer inductions in the office because there is some specific language around childhood grief. We don't use the word passed away or lost. We use died, death, dead. We need to be very clear with them. When we talk about a parent that had died, we often don't say your special person. That was the old terminology because we use the word important person, because in some cases, especially around trauma deaths, that the parent that has passed away may not have been special, but they were still a mum or dad, so they're still important in their lives, but may not have been a special person in their lives. There may have been the domestic violence situation.
You can't assume things, can you?
So we use the word important person. So we actually do some training with our volunteers on the terminology and the camp program and what to expect from us and what we expect from them, all that sort of stuff, before they tend to a camp. Sometimes that's done over the phone if we're a little bit short, like poor Cody. I think he copped his induction over the phone. But this Sunday we're inducting 13 new volunteers, which is amazing. So we do those periodically as well.
Well, just the support, going back to our gala dinner at the footy club, Geelong Footy Club, a few weeks back. We had the silent auction, we had the broad auction. There's lots of people out there, I'm sure, that have items of value, things that they, businesses that could say, well, I can donate, items of clothing, a piece of art, whatever. So I would think, even if we had people volunteering to donate things like that, or a week, we've got lots of friends that have got places that they rent out as holiday places that give a weekend. I know with our footy club, we have 4 or 5 items every time we have a fundraising auction night where one of the club people will donate a week at their Yarrawonga or Port Fairy or those places. So those sorts of things, I would imagine.
100%.
And another thought, that you sometimes have to bring people like we did to the Geelong Footy Club for an evening. At my footy club last year did a silent auction online, so we didn't actually have an event, and it ran for about 6 or 8 weeks. And it was a terrific fundraiser. So if we could get people to be donating things and then looking to, buy things like that, that's a great way to fundraise without too much effort. 100%.
Yeah. And talking about that event, Wombats Wish is our office is based in Drysdale, and obviously I have some great connections down there, and it is an amazing community. The Drysdale community, the businesses, corporate sponsorship, where $60,000 we got out of Drysdale in corporate sponsorship.
Might have something to do with you, Nikki, I reckon.
Our donations for our auctions, all of our donations pretty much came out of Drysdale. It is such a supportive community, and I think that's part of the key to our success at the moment, is being in a town that is very community minded. And whereas previously we were before I started, they had an office in Geelong. which was so expensive that was nearly paid for a full camp, moving to Drysdale, in the savings in the lease costs. But you lost in Geelong. Being in a community has been amazing. Yeah, and
I think there too that, like, just not to contradict that at all, but I mean, you've got to start to get that community awareness, and if you can build, which you clearly have done with your links to Drysdale, there's a really, really strong, passionate commitment from the Drysdale community to support Nikki and Wombats Wish. Well, there's no reason that can't become the Geelong community if we just keep building on that awareness and communication.
Exactly.
And the more people that know what an awesome job and fantastic service for kids who've lost a parent, let's make it. Let's make the Geelong community be supportive, not just the Drysdale
That's my
community.
goal this year.
Yeah. Well,
Corporates in
let's
Geelong.
let's work on that. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's our theme for this
Yeah.
for this podcast, is putting forward other businesses and organisations that we can promote and put on a pedestal and endorse in any way we can for those that are doing great things in the community.
And Geelong as a whole is an amazing community too in its charitable events and support. You know, you look at all the charities that are actually in Geelong set up because the community is so supportive. So,
Talking about Geelong and support, I noticed you've got a couple of prominent Geelong people as other ambassadors, and Peter touched on your patron, Brian Cook. Do you want to touch on some of those, some of the ambassadorial roles and Brian's role as patron?
So Brian's been involved in Wombats Wish for a very long time. Jill got him involved almost at conception stage as an ambassador. And Frank Costa was our patron, and unfortunately Frank has died. And Brian has a story of his mother died when he was very young, and they were actually living in Australia at the time, and he was sent back to Scotland to live with an auntie and uncle after his mother died. So he has a very strong connection with Wombats Wish and was the perfect person to name as our patron, which we did at our fundraising gala. His speech was
Extraordinary.
wasn't it? It was. I knew Brian's story. I didn't know a lot of it, but I don't think there was a dry eye in the room. So he's the perfect person as our patron. Then we decided we needed a few more ambassadors. So I was watching the Brownlow and heard Travis Boak's background story, and I thought, Torquay boy, this is perfect for us, high profile. I think he won the Brownlow that year. It was pretty close.
Very, very close.
And so I reached out to his manager, and so we got Travis on board. With COVID and his football commitments, and Port Adelaide are very strict on their COVID rules. He actually hasn't been to an event or a camp as yet, just with the timing. Hopefully we'll get him here in November.
Do you know anyone at Port Adelaide you might be able to twist their arm, Peter? Or
I'll have a chat to Kenny this afternoon about getting Travis released for half an hour for you.
Yeah, I'll need him for longer than half an hour if he's going to come to camp. Emily Mannix is a local Drysdale girl who played for Australian Diamonds, and she's vice captain of the Vixens. She hasn't had a parent die, but she was very, very close to her grandmother, and thought that might be a really good other side of the coin connection for Wombats Wish. And then Tom, we had, through Brian, I invited Tom to come to our fundraising gala when it was meant to be, well, July, then October, then January.
this is Tom Hawkins.
Yes. So he'd accepted our invitation twice with the changes of dates due to COVID, and then actually reached out to us and said, I've just done some research on Wombats Wish. I think I want to become an ambassador. So, yep, we got Tom on board. He came down to our camp last year, and I must say he was absolutely amazing. He took the time to sit down and talk to every child, every parent that was there. they all made jokes on behalf of me because I'm so short and Tom's so tall and all of that. But he has been a great ambassador. He has attended a camp. It was really unfortunate that with the ball being changed for the third time that we couldn't get our ambassadors to the event.
The little video from each of them was still really nice. Yeah, it was great.
So I still need to work on a few more ambassadors. I need to get some from the entertainment industry or...
Ben's pretty heavily connected in the entertainment industry.
That sort of side of things, because our ambassadors certainly raise our profile. They do share our social media stories and things like that, and they've got such huge followings that they can help us raise our profile. So probably need to work on that a little bit more, but... they do amazing work for us. They're great spokespeople. Yeah,
that's where social media really, for all of the perceived and potential negatives of social media, those people that have influence and following can make a huge difference in getting messages across.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, we're nearing on an hour. I'm sure we could continue to talk for a lot longer. Maybe if I just go round, we'll finish with Nikki, but I'll go round the table if there's anything else you wanted to add, Peter, before we wrap up.
I just wanted to thank you, Nikki, for coming in and chatting to us, and it's obviously a very personal, very powerful reason to be supporting. It's been wonderful to know and have the chance to spread the word. We just want to spread the word and do as much as we can so that over the next handful of years we can fund 20 camps and have 4 or 5 people working so that the board will have an easier job. I'm thinking of myself now. Have an easier job just having oversight and supporting all the objectives of the benefits for the young people that we support. So I can't thank you enough.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Peter.
Yeah, I think, like I said at the start, you learn, again, I had some awareness of it, but I know most of your friends and family wouldn't even have a clue what Wombats Wish is. So if today's been a chance to spread that word a bit further to our clients and connections, that's, again, you've done so much in the last 2 years, but it's probably just the absolute start of it, isn't it? So it's really just, it's only sort of really kicked off in the last 2 years. So again, it's good to be connected to it and I was just understanding it more.
I was just thinking before, I know that this podcast is certainly not about sort of financial planning, but it's interesting the sort of the connection, just how much of our conversations, particularly with young families, is around getting people's situation in order. So in the event of, and I suppose the thing that we know from personal experience and from client experience is that a lot of these things that we experience following the passing of someone, they're not a problem until they're a problem, and we can again potentially create so much awareness within our client base. We're already talking to them about the fact that making sure that there's protection of themselves and their children. I think it's just a great extension on that from our perspective. Sorry,
I was going to say, I know clients specifically, and I don't know if it's a younger client thing, but I have younger ones who they're ambitious about helping charities and doing things like that, but they don't necessarily know where to do it or how to actually have an impact, where it can sometimes just get lost in the wash when it's a big organisation and they put some money towards it, where some of them could potentially fund a camp on their own or something of significance to them as actually a meaningful contribution. So again, I think people are inclined to give if they understand and connect to the reason why. They don't just want to throw money in bits and pieces here. So if you have context around it, I think it helps to promote it.
The other thing too is I think a lot of people when they do donate, they worry, and it's a question I get asked a lot.
Where's it go?
And how much goes on to admin?
Yeah.
I can honestly sit here and say in May, our financial report, only 8% of our time went to admin. The rest of it goes directly to the kids. So it's a very, very small amount to run a statewide charity when we're only spending it's only costing the charity 8%. So we can very comfortably say that every dollar donated, actually goes towards supporting a child through their grief through one of our programs. It doesn't go to their admin costs.
And people like you, Nikki, that do 50 hours and get paid for 25.
Well, we are very passionate about Wombats Wish in the office.
So talking about the passion for Wombats Wish, let's close out with where where people out there can actually get in contact with Wombats Wish, how to follow you on social media, and how they can get in contact if they'd want to support in any way, shape or form.
So if you just search Wombats Wish, Facebook, Instagram and LinkedIn, we are on all those 3 platforms. Our website's www.wombatswish.org.au. Emails to freeman@wombatswish.org.au. And we've just got a new phone number and I just can't quite remember that. So we'll get that to you, but it is on our website.
Fantastic, Nikki. Anything else you'd like to add before we close out?
Just like to say thank you for having me here this morning. And
On your first podcast ever, is that right?
Yes, it is.
Well, hopefully
Not
it's
that bad, is it? It's not that scary.
hopefully it's the first of many. Nikki, again, thanks so much for joining us this morning. Ben, Peter, thanks again for your time, and everyone out there. Get on board with Wombats Wish and support wherever you possibly can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks heaps, Nikki. Thanks, Jay. Thanks, Ben.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you're keen to understand more about how financial advice could benefit you, follow us on Instagram, Facebook and Twitter at Burke Britton FP, or Google Burke Britton Financial Partners. Check out our client reviews, testimonials, and make a time to meet one of our certified financial planners by clicking Book Now on our website. Thanks for listening.
Any information contained in this podcast is of a general nature only. No account was taken as to the objectives, financial situation, or needs of any particular person. Therefore, before making any decision, listeners should consider the appropriateness of any information with regard to their particular objective, financial situation, needs, and seek independent advice from a licensed professional specific to their circumstances.
All right, hit it.
That translates to don't be a moron and act on what some random person says on a podcast. Take personal responsibility, do your homework, ask questions, and speak to an actual human that knows what they're talking about before you do anything. PB Financial Solutions Proprietary Limited, trading as Burke Britton Financial Partners, are authorised representatives of AMP Financial Planning Limited, AFS licence number 232706.